Hello, hello, blissful parents. Michelle Abraham, your host here today. Guys, I've got an exciting guest for you today, Jackie Bailey. Jackie, hi, how are you?
I am great, Michelle. Thanks for being with you today. It's great to be here.
Yeah, well, we're super excited to have you here with us, and we're going to be talking all about getting your kids to talk to you. And I know this is something that a lot of parents struggle with. And I was just sharing with you before we press record that sometimes the most information I can get is like 5 minutes before they fall asleep at night. Like, why didn't we talk about this at dinner? So I can see, and as my kids get older, I know so many other parents can relate to this too. The answers get shorter and shorter to their question, to their answers to us. So love to talk about how we can get them to talk to us a little bit more and have some more great conversations. So let me tell our audience a little bit more about you, Jackie. So Jackie is the author of Self-Centered Leadership, Becoming Influential, Intentional, and Exceptional, published in 2014 and 15, semifinalist of the World Championship of Public Speaking, placing her in the top 98 speakers of 30,000 competitors. Wow, that's amazing. Today, Jackie runs the Speak Feed Lead Public Speaking Studio in Redmond, Washington, and is the founder and executive director of the Speak Feed Lead Project, a nonprofit with a mission to empower children, teens, and adults with public speaking skills. Jackie, wow, that's so incredible. So what led you to really wanting to be passionate about helping kids specifically in their speaking?
Well, I have prepared my whole life to be able to do this. The way that a lot of passions begin is through tragic events. And I am no different. I am a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. And I was told, don't tell anyone. And I didn't. But those three words repressed and suppressed who I was. And it made me uncomfortable to speak up, always being afraid that I might tell something that I wasn't supposed to tell. And so it kept me from really being who I wanted to be and who I thought I could be. I mean, I don't even remember having dreams of becoming something when I was young, or even through my adolescence. I thought from time to time maybe I'd be a writer someday, but I didn't have aspirations to do anything great because I couldn't imagine a great life like that. So years later, after I'd kept this silence, I was a young mother, married, I had two children, and all of a sudden, this person who had abused me most of my life had a little baby girl of his own. And it thrust me into this deep emotional crisis of, oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? Do I keep the silence and just wish the best for that little girl? Or do I actually now break it and risk everything that I had at that moment? And it was probably 4 to 6 months of absolute misery that I kept myself trying to decide what to do, and thinking that maybe they think I was crazy and take my kids away from me. What if my husband didn't love me anymore because he knew how ugly and ashamed I was? And yet at the same time, there was this little girl that I could possibly save by just opening this possibility up. So in the end, after considering taking my life as well, I decided that I loved my own children more than I hated myself, because I thought if I went to my grave not having at least told someone to be watchful of my children, then they might fall victim to this as well. So I did start to break the silence. It was an awful time, but each time I started to share my message by using my voice and writing in my journal, I would heal a little bit more each time. And I was able to describe it. And, as a child, sometimes you don't even know the words to use to describe what's happening to you. And so as I started to use particular vocabulary that defined what happened, and I could start sharing that, and now it made sense. And it really happened, and I wasn't imagining it, and people believed me. And all of those empowering steps I was taking led me over several years through therapy and moving away from the family and all that stuff that I was able to reach a point where I could forgive. And so I've learned that there's three magical words, I forgive you, that actually create a magical experience for the person saying them and the person receiving them. And that happened in this case, and was beneficial to both myself and the person who had abused me when I was able to say those words to him. And so what I've learned from that is that we all have some sort of trauma. There's a point in our lives where we feel like we're being silenced. And I know a lot of kids feel that way on a regular basis, just because they're learning how to speak out, they're learning who they are. But being thrust into a pandemic over the last couple of years and being taken from school, from social situations, many kids, unfortunately, being locked away with their families who are abusive, they've been silenced. And although I had started the public speaking courses prior to the pandemic, at one point early on, I realized we need to be a nonprofit so that we can start teaching kids these skills, even those who can't afford them but probably need them the most.
Right.
But anyway, I was invited after I was a competition speaker. I was invited by a homeschool group to come and do some public speaking courses for their kids. And I'd never even thought about it before, but I went, hey, I could do that. I just went through a contest where I had 5 to 7 minutes to give a very specific, unique, motivational speech. And I know what that's like. So I have some skills I could teach. And that's kind of where it all started. And then I began to just develop more and more curriculum. And now we teach kids worldwide how to not just be on stage and speak about something with a prepared speech, but they have opportunity to learn how to converse in an effective way, how to ask appropriate questions, how to listen actively, how to respond to what other people are saying too, and have empathy for others, recognizing everybody has a story, everybody has value, and something we can learn from them. So that was a long answer to get to the point where I am today. So that's because my own childhood silencing.
Right.
Now I feel passionate about helping all children to be unsilenced and give them knowledge that they need to be heard.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we have a few things going on right now. Not only the kids that have been silenced, but also the kids that are now attached to devices that don't have the communication skills that they need to have that empathy or have a conversation with someone and converse in a proper way. I mean, I have interviewed, luckily, on the Women of Voices Summit, some of your students, and so great to see like the young students, taking initiative, creating these preparation they went through to create their stories and to be interviewed and be able to speak and share their messages was really incredible. It was an incredible experience seeing the other side of your training when they've come through. So that was really neat for me. And I think, I was sharing with you before we press record too about, having hired some students in their late teens, early 20s that were so afraid of the phone and so afraid of picking up the phone and calling someone. And that was it blows my mind that, oh my gosh, that's really a skill that now more than ever really needs to be taught. More so, it used to just come naturally, right? You speak, right?
Well, it's interesting over the last generation, and my daughter is one of those generations where they sort of grew up on computers. And it has taken away that really foundational art of conversation and just looking at people while you talk to them. And besides, when these kids, when they're in school or even if they're homeschooled, many times they are given assignments to research a particular topic and then give a report on that. And so they're being graded on something that they're not passionate about, perhaps they don't even care about, and yet they have to play the game, so to speak, in order to pass this course or to get a grade. And that's really counterproductive when we don't give kids the chance to talk about what really matters to them.
Right.
And I am proud to say that when those students who you interviewed came to me and said, yes, I want to do this, they were excited about not having an assignment. They could talk about whatever was important to them.
Cool.
And that was something that doesn't come very often for them.
Right.
We're able to see that, they do have important things they want to talk about, and their opinions matter just as much as ours do, probably even more in some cases. And yet we kind of poo-poo it because they're inexperienced, but they have their own experiences to share, and we need to listen to them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Are there some tips that you can share with us parents that maybe have kids that, are short answers, short answer givers, and how to really have some great conversations with our kids in our homes rather than just the "how was your day at school today?" Fine, thanks. beyond that.
Absolutely. Well, what I will say about that is the reason that they likely don't answer in more than just a good, great, whatever, or a grunt is because they've learned that you're not listening to them anyway. Unfortunately, and I don't want to judge any parent. I'm a parent, I'm a grandparent,
Right.
so I do it myself. I'm just as guilty of it. But let's imagine a scenario here for a moment. Child comes in the door from school. Mom or dad is sitting there and they say, "Hey, how was your day?" Pretty typical, common question. And scenario one, the child says, "Oh, I got in trouble because I pushed Sandy, from down into her chair," something like that. And the parent goes, "You did what?" They have this reaction. It's judgmental, and all
They're
of a
being
sudden there's
shut
this
down for what they
drama.
said. Yeah.
Yeah. So number one lesson the child has learned: never really say what happened to me during the day, because I'm going to get a reaction and I'm going to have to defend everything. Right. So that leads them to going, fine. Okay. Second scenario, child comes in the door, parent asks same question, and child goes, "Well, you know what? I did really good on my test today," or I didn't realize it. And all the while, parent is in front of their cell phone. Oh, yeah. Nice. Okay. Not listening at all to the child. And so the child begins to feel like, why am I saying all of this? Why am I answering these questions if I'm not being heard anyway? So lesson two they learn is, it's not worth my breath to really tell you how my day was, because it doesn't matter.
So sad, right?
I know.
Yeah.
But I don't think we do those things on purpose. It's just that as parents, we do love our kids so much. We want to protect them. We want to feel connected to what's happening to them. But because we aren't in the mindset always of just letting them share without judgment, and we let them share when we've got so many things going on ourselves that we can't let go, like the devices, then it just inadvertently teaches them lessons that we would never actually want them to learn, but they are learning them. So the solution then is that it's going to take a little bit of time for you to prove to your child that what they have to say is important and that you want to hear it. So I think the first thing you can do is start asking different questions.
Not the yes or no answer ones, right?
Right. Rather than a typical, "How was your day?" Let's get a little more specific. Maybe, "Hey, did anything weird happen today?" Or, "What was the best part of your day?" Or, "What do you think you are best at? Where did you feel like you really shine today?" And by asking questions like that and listening, your child,
that's the key
your child, you will now learn about things that actually motivate your child, which is good to know, right? When you want them to do something for you, it's nice to know what motivates them. So by listening to their answers about things where they felt important, or where they felt excited about the day, or even maybe some of the biggest challenges they had in the day, you will learn so much from them and about them that you can use to your benefit going forward. So the first step really is to just change the questions and ask more questions. Make less statements like, "Pick up your shoes, go put your backpack away, get your homework done." Quit talking at your kids so much and start asking them the right kinds of questions.
Right. That's great. That's a great tip. we had a guest on here from the On Boys podcast. They're the hosts of this podcast. It was all about boys. And one of the things they said was I found really interesting because especially boys they're the ones really that give those short little, and in my opinion anyways, you have the
Most of
short
the time,
answers.
yeah.
Yeah. And one of them said when you're picking the boys up or your kids up in general in the car, when they come into the car, say hi, but then don't say anything else and let them start to unravel their conversations. And I tried that a few times. Oh, wow, there was a lot of information coming out.
Yeah, good. See, there you go. Another tip.
That was a really good tip. I just thought our parents should also remember too. That was a good one to like get out there. But yeah, it was just incredible as to like when I dip my lips with all the questions, some of more answers were coming too, which is cool.
Well, I think the reason for that might be if I just interject something,
Yeah,
because again,
absolutely.
it goes back to the sincerity of the question and the motive of the parent to start that conversation. And so if your child feels like you really don't want me to answer this question because you're on your phone or you're about to send an email or something like that, that's where the lack of sincerity from the point of view comes in. So so maybe not asking any question does lead them to think, okay, maybe my mom or dad isn't going to ask me something because they're motivated to find out, something that they really don't care about. So maybe I'll just wait till I can have a chance to talk. So that plays into, I think, that same scenario, just in a different way.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would love to ask you about your feed lead. So where does the feed fit in? I'd love to know that part.
Yeah. The speak and the lead are a little bit more self-explanatory, but the feed is because a tremendously vital part of our curriculum is the feedback we give to each other. And so not only are our students learning how to be better communicators themselves, but they're getting feedback from their peers about how well they delivered a speech or how well they used a certain word or how many crutch words or filler words they used within class, because changes like that don't happen unless you have an accounting of how often you're doing it and you realize that it's a habit to say yes or like or whatever, that kind of way too often. And so feedback is a vital part of what we do. And there's power when you receive that feedback from your peers, because they're used to getting it from their adults and teachers in their lives, but not necessarily from their peers in a way that is useful, helpful, courteous, and kind in many ways. So that's a big part of it. But there's a second part to feed, which is learning how to use words to feed someone's spirit rather than to break them down or denigrate them. So feeding is also learning how to communicate in such a way that's kind, courteous, and that's going to make people feel better about themselves when they're with you rather than the opposite.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's so great. What a great skill to teach too, like how to give feedback in a way that's helpful.
Oh yeah, we all need that from time to time, right?
Some of us parents need to go back to that class too.
Yeah, it is really important, and they may not see the application of it entirely until they move into a leadership position at school or something like that, but it will show itself. And many of my students have said, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that when I started working in this nonprofit organization after school or whatever, as a tutor for these different kids, I didn't realize how important it would be to know how to give them feedback. That, I'm tutoring this kid and helping him to learn better math skills or whatever. And I didn't realize how I could first give compliments to what they are doing well, and then just suggest by what I observed, there's some different things that can be done to arrive at a different conclusion. And they do that without judgment. So it is awesome that they do eventually learn how to apply it, but it depends on the age of the child that's learning as to when that.
Yeah, that's really cool. So I know you have a priming program. Can you share with us a little bit about that? And I know our audience is going to get a chance to have a 30 days access to that. Is that right?
They are, absolutely. This is what I'm about to tell you is revolutionizing science and communication.
Mm.
It's called Positive Prime.
Uh-huh.
And as most of us probably know or have considered, our thoughts are everything.
Mm-hmm.
And our thoughts are going to create emotions, and those emotions create behaviors. And as parents know, behaviors aren't always the best. But if you can trace it back to a thought, then you'll probably be able to see why your child is behaving the way they are. And so our thoughts are either negative or they're positive. And if we can put more positive thoughts into our brain on a daily basis, we're going to have more positive outcomes because our emotions will be positive and therefore our behaviors will be positive. So we have incorporated a neuroscientific tool that has been proven that by sitting through what we call a session of Positive Prime for 3 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
the benefit is 6 to 8 hours of more creativity, more gratitude, more positivity, more success,
Mm-hmm.
more remembrance of things that are important, like test taking and so forth. Proven. So we start every class with a 3-minute Positive Prime session, which includes music.
Mm-hmm.
It includes images of places that are beautiful all over our planet.
Mm-hmm.
It includes faces of people smiling, families doing activities together, people serving and helping each other, and some positive affirmation type statements that the watcher can internalize to, again, change their brain into a positive ground to be fertilized with more wonderful things, right?
Yeah.
And so we start every class with that, and I encourage my students to use it outside of class. So what I'm offering your listeners today is 30 days of access to hundreds of different sessions for kids, for adults, about wealth, abundance, health, success, achievement, leadership, inspiration, everything imaginable. There's even sessions on there for those who are teachers, sessions on there for those who are in direct sales to help you kind of boost what you're doing. And so you don't even have to put in a credit card. Just 30 days, you can try it for free as often as you can. I suggest at least 3 minutes a day, but you can't overdose on it. And so enjoy it. And please let me know what effects it had on you. And once you're in there, I suggest that you add some of your own images. For instance, images of your kids, your family, places you want to go, maybe $1 million that maybe you want to achieve, something like that. Whatever you want to manifest, put an image of that in your session, which you have capability of doing. And then you can also mute the sound of the particular session you watch and listen to your own music while you're watching it. So sometimes I just feel like I need to get in touch with spirit a little bit more, and I'll listen to hymns while I'm watching a muted session, and it has a completely different experience for me. So lots of ways to use it, and I hope your listeners will take advantage of that.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. That sounds awesome. Well, thank you, Jackie, for being with us today and sharing. And thank you for that wonderful gift. I'm going to make sure that we link it in the show notes and everything here on Blissful Parenting. So Blissful Parents, you've heard it from Jackie. Let's start communicating with our kids in a little bit better way. Make sure that they know that what they have to say is important. I love that, Jackie. Any last words for our parents today?
My last words are, we have programs starting all the time for your kids to get in and learn public speaking skills, and some of the other skills that I've talked about today. So check us out, speakfeedlead.org. And we've got classes starting really soon. And they're all virtual. So your kids are going to be in classes with people from all around the world. Like we used to have pen pals, and we have pen speakers.
Oh, I love it.
Anyway.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much, Jackie. And Blissful Parents, go out there and have a fabulous week. We'll see you again next week.